Maya Chen sat in the back corner of Advanced Galactic History. Her worn notebook balanced on her lap as she scribbled notes about the Third Centauri War. Around her, students from 12 different species chatted, in their native tongues, while Professor Kelthar's forearms gestured dramatically at the holographic display showing ancient battle formations. Nobody looked at Maya. They never did. At 17, she was one of only 3 humans at the prestigious Stellar Academy on Kepler Station, a massive educational facility that orbited the gas giant Prometheus. The other 2 humans were Marcus Webb, whose father commanded the Terran Defense Fleet, and Sarah Kim, who had scored perfect marks on every xenobiology exam since arriving 2 years ago. They sat in the front rows, asked intelligent questions, and were invited to study groups. Maya? She was just there. Her scholarship covered tuition and boarding, nothing more. While other students wore the latest fashion from their home worlds, Maya patched holes in her 3 identical gray jumpsuits. While they ate expensive meals at the station's many restaurants, Maya survived on basic ration packs from the communal kitchen. Miss Chen. Professor Kelthar's voice cut through her thoughts. His large, compound eyes focused on her with what might have been amusement. Perhaps you could enlighten us about humanity's role in the Third Centauri War. A few students turned to look at her, mostly with expressions of mild curiosity. The Zephyrian next to her, whose name she had never learned despite sitting there for 6 months, wrinkled his nose at her second-hand clothes. Maya cleared her throat. Humans weren't involved in the Third Centauri War, Professor. It ended in 2387, but humans didn't achieve faster-than-light travel until 2391. Correct? Kelthar nodded, his attention already moving away. Now who can tell me about the decisive battle of Kepler's rings? Several hands shot up, not Maya's. She had learned early that being right too often made her classmates uncomfortable. Better to blend into the background. After class, Maya walked alone through the Academy's gleaming corridors. The station's artificial gravity felt slightly lighter than Earth's, making each step bounce just a little. Through the massive viewport windows, she could see other students gathered in social areas, their colorful clothing and animated conversations creating a vibrant tapestry of galactic youth. She reached her dormitory room, a small space she shared with Zara, a quiet Altarian who spent most of her time in meditation. The room smelled faintly of the breathing moss Zara needed for proper oxygen filtration. Maya had grown used to it. Her personal computer chimed softly. A message from her mother back on Earth appeared on the screen, showing the familiar walls of their tiny apartment in New Seoul. Maya, sweetheart, how are your studies going? Your father got promoted to shift supervisor at the power plant. We're so proud of you. Being at that fancy school with all those aliens. Make sure you're eating enough. Love you, Maya smiled despite herself. Her parents had worked 3 jobs each to help supplement her scholarship application. They believed she was living some glamorous life among the stars. She didn't have the heart to tell them she was lonelier than she had ever been on Earth. She pulled out her homework, a complex analysis of the economic factors that led to the Rigel uprising. Most students used advanced AI tutors that cost more than her parents made in a month. Maya relied on the Academy's basic library system and her own determination. As she worked, she heard laughter from the hallway. Through her door's small window, she saw Marcus Webb and a group of friends walking past. They were probably heading to the Zero-G Sports Complex or one of the exclusive clubs that required membership fees. Maya returned to her homework. She had always been good at finding patterns others missed, at seeing connections between seemingly unrelated events. It was why she had earned the scholarship in the first place. Her application essay about the parallels between Earth's ancient tribal conflicts and modern galactic politics had impressed the selection committee. Now, as she analyzed trade routes and resource distribution patterns that preceded the Rigel uprising, she began to notice something interesting. The official histories all focused on the political tensions between the Rigel colonies and the Galactic Council, but the economic data told a different story. Someone had been deliberately manipulating trade routes for months before the uprising began. Small changes almost invisible unless you knew what to look for. Cargo ships rerouted here, shipments delayed there, prices artificially inflated in just the right markets. Maya cross-referenced the data with shipping records from the Academy's archives. The manipulation wasn't random. It followed a pattern, almost like a military strategy, but not from any species she recognized. Her computer chimed again. This time it wasn't a message from home. It was an automated notice from the Academy's security system. Attention all students. Due to increased pirate activity in the Outer Rim, all recreational travel beyond Kepler Station is suspended until further notice. Please report any suspicious communications or activities to campus security immediately. Maya frowned. Pirate activity had been increasing for months across multiple sectors. The Galactic Council called it a minor nuisance, probably desperate colonies trying to supplement their resources through illegal means. But Maya's mind was already making connections. The economic manipulation before the Rigel uprising, the current pattern of pirate attacks, the trade route disruptions that seemed random but might not be. She pulled up star charts and began plotting the locations of recent pirate attacks. Each dot represented a merchant vessel hit, a convoy raided, a shipping lane disrupted. At first glance, they seemed scattered across the galaxy's outer regions, but when Maya adjusted the timeline and layered the data differently, a pattern emerged. The attacks were creating gaps in the galactic supply chain, specific gaps that would force traffic through certain choke points. Her hands moved quickly across the keyboard, pulling up more data. Resource distribution reports, military patrol schedules, economic projections from the Galactic Council's own databases. The picture that emerged made her blood run cold. Someone was preparing for war, not the chaotic skirmishes between individual species that had marked the last century, but something coordinated, something big. Maya stared at her screen, her heart pounding. She was probably wrong. She was just a scholarship student from Earth, analyzing homework in her tiny dorm room. The Galactic Council had the best strategic minds from dozens of species. Surely they would have noticed if something this significant was happening. But the data didn't lie, and Maya had always been good at seeing patterns others missed. Outside her window, Kepler Station continued its slow rotation around the gas giant, its lights twinkling peacefully in the cosmic darkness. Thousands of students from across the galaxy slept safely in their beds, trusting that the adults were keeping watch. Maya saved her analysis to a secure file and tried to sleep, but her mind kept racing, connecting dots that painted an increasingly frightening picture. Tomorrow she would double-check her work. Maybe she would even find the courage to tell someone what she had discovered. She had no idea that tomorrow would change everything. Maya woke to the sound of alarms, not the gentle chimes that usually signaled class changes or meal times, but the harsh, urgent wailing that meant emergency. Red lights flashed in her dormitory room, casting everything in an ominous glow. Zara was already up, her silvery skin pale with fear. "What's happening?" she whispered in her musical Altarian accent. Before Maya could answer, the Academy's loudspeaker system crackled to life. Director Voss's usually calm voice carried a note of tension that made Maya's stomach clench. "All students report to designated emergency shelters immediately. This is not a drill. Unknown vessels have entered Kepler system space and are refusing to respond to communications. All students report to emergency shelters immediately." Maya's blood turned to ice. Her analysis from the night before flashed through her mind. The pattern of attacks, the economic manipulation, the gaps in the supply chain. She had been right, but being right had never felt worse. Students poured into the corridors, a chaotic mix of species all united by confusion and fear. Maya saw Marcus Webb pushing through the crowd, his usual confidence replaced by wide-eyed panic. Sarah Kim was crying, clutching a small stuffed animal from Earth. The emergency shelters were deep in the station's core, protected by thick armor plating and independent life support systems. As they walked through the corridors, Maya could see through the viewports that space around Kepler Station was no longer empty. Dozens of ships hung in the darkness, their sleek black hulls reflecting no light. They were unlike any vessels in the galactic databases, their design both alien and somehow familiar. They weren't broadcasting any identification signals, weren't responding to the station's communications. They were just waiting. Professor Kelthar was directing students into the shelter when he noticed Maya. His compound eyes focused on her with unusual intensity. "Miss Chen, you studied military history extensively for your scholarship application, correct?" Maya nodded, not trusting her voice. "Those ships," he gestured toward the viewport. "Do they match any known design from your research?" Maya looked again at the vessels. Their angular lines and dark surfaces reminded her of something from her studies, but she couldn't place it immediately. "They're not from any current galactic species," she said slowly. "But the design philosophy, it's familiar somehow." Before Professor Kelther could respond, the lights went out. Emergency power kicked in a moment later, bathing everything in dim red light. The station's communication system buzzed with static, then cleared to reveal a voice that made everyone freeze. It was speaking in perfect galactic standard, but the accent was unlike anything Maya had ever heard. "Ancient somehow, but also coldly modern. People of the galaxy," the voice said. "You have forgotten us, but we have not forgotten you. We are the predecessors, the first children of the stars. We departed this galaxy 10,000 years ago, but now we have returned to reclaim what was always ours." Murmurs of fear rippled through the shelter. The predecessors were legend, myths from the galaxy's distant past, the species that had supposedly achieved faster than light travel before any of the current civilizations had even developed agriculture. Most scholars believed they were fictional. "Your young civilizations have spread across our ancient territories like parasites," the voice continued. "You have built your petty empires on the foundations we laid. This ends now. You have 72 hours to begin evacuation of all systems originally settled by our people. Failure to comply will result in forcible removal." The transmission ended, leaving only the sound of frightened breathing and whispered prayers in a dozen languages. Director Voss's voice came over the internal communications. "All students remain in the shelters. Faculty and senior staff report to the command center immediately." Maya found herself sitting next to Zara, who was trembling despite the warm temperature in the shelter. Around them, students from across the galaxy huddled together, species barriers forgotten in the face of common fear. "They can't be real," Marcus Webb said loudly, his voice carrying the authority he was used to commanding. "The predecessors are myths. This has to be some kind of hoax or terrorist attack." But Maya was thinking about her analysis from the night before. The pattern of pirate attacks, the economic manipulation, the careful preparation. "What if they're not myths?" she said quietly. Several students turned to look at her. Marcus frowned. "What did you say?" Maya felt her cheeks burn but continued. "The recent pirate attacks, the trade disruptions. What if they weren't random? What if someone was preparing the way for an invasion?" "That's ridiculous," Marcus scoffed. "You're talking about conspiracy theories." But Professor Kelther, who had remained in the shelter to monitor the students, was looking at Maya with sharp interest. "What kind of preparation do you mean, Miss Chen?" Maya took a deep breath. This was it, the moment she stopped being invisible. "Last night I was analyzing economic data for my homework. I found patterns in the trade disruptions and pirate attacks. Someone has been systematically weakening our supply lines and forcing ships into predictable routes. It's like they were mapping our current capabilities while disrupting our ability to respond to threats." The shelter fell silent except for the hum of life support systems. Even Marcus was staring at her now. "You discovered this last night?" Professor Kelther asked softly. Maya nodded. "I saved the analysis to my personal files. I was going to double-check it today, maybe report it to someone if it seemed important." Professor Kelthar's forearms moved quickly across his portable terminal. "Miss Chen, I'm forwarding your access codes to the command center. They need to see this analysis immediately." "But I'm just a student," Maya protested. "I could be wrong." "The Galactic Defense Force has been trying to understand the pattern of recent attacks for months," Professor Kelthar said grimly. "If you found something they missed, it could be crucial." The station shuddered slightly, and through the shelter's small viewport, Maya could see the black ships moving closer. They moved with purpose, taking up positions around Kepler Station like pieces on a chessboard. Maya's portable computer chimed with an incoming message. The sender was Commander Sarah Reeves of the Galactic Defense Force. "Miss Chen, we've reviewed your preliminary analysis. Your pattern recognition appears to be accurate. We need you in the command center immediately to provide additional insight. Please report to Section 7 under faculty escort." Maya stared at the message, her hands shaking. Around her, the other students were looking at her with expressions ranging from amazement to envy. Marcus Webb's mouth was hanging open. "Maya," Zara whispered, "you're going to help save us all." But Maya wasn't thinking about being a hero. She was thinking about the data she had seen, the careful and methodical way the attacks had been planned. The predecessors, if that's who they really were, had spent months preparing for this moment. They knew exactly how the current galactic civilizations would respond, which meant they probably had a plan for that too. Professor Kelthar was waiting by the shelter door, his expression serious but encouraging. "Are you ready, Miss Chen?" Maya stood up on shaking legs. For 17 years she had been invisible, overlooked, forgotten. Now suddenly, everyone was looking at her. She thought about her parents back on Earth, working their 3 jobs each and believing their daughter was living a glamorous life among the stars. She thought about all the students around her, frightened and looking for someone to blame or someone to save them. She thought about the black ships outside, waiting with inhuman patience for the galaxy to surrender. "I'm ready," Maya said, and followed Professor Kelthar toward whatever came next. The command center buzzed with controlled chaos. Officers from a dozen species worked at holographic displays showing ship positions, communication channels, and tactical assessments. The air smelled of ozone and stress sweat from at least 6 different kinds of beings. Commander Sarah Reeves was human, which surprised Maya. Most Galactic Defense Force commanders were from species with longer military traditions. Reeves was tall and lean, with graying hair and eyes that seemed to see everything at once. "Miss Chen," she said without preamble, "show me what you found." Maya's hands trembled as she accessed her files on the command center's main display. The holographic projection filled the air above them, showing trade routes, attack patterns, and economic disruption data layered in different colors. Here, Maya pointed to a cluster of red dots. The attacks seem random at first, but when you adjust for timing and look at the secondary effects, she manipulated the display, and the pattern became clear. They're not trying to steal cargo or destroy ships. They're forcing traffic into these specific corridors. A Zephyrian tactical officer leaned forward, his feathered crest rising with interest, creating choke points. "But why?" Maya highlighted another layer of data. "Because once you control the choke points, you can predict exactly where our response forces will be. Look at the patrol schedules." The display showed Galactic Defense Force patrol routes overlaid with the attack patterns. It was like watching a master chess player move their opponent's pieces exactly where they wanted them. Commander Reeves was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was grim. "How long have they been doing this?" "At least 8 months, Maya said. "Maybe longer. I only had access to recent data for my homework assignment." 8 months, Reeves repeated. She turned to her staff. "Get me everything we have on the predecessor civilizations. Archaeological data, linguistic analysis, technological assessments, everything." A young Altarian officer spoke up. "Commander, most scholars believe the predecessors are mythological." "Well, Lieutenant, those mythological beings just announced their return with 47 warships that don't match any known technology," Reeves snapped. "I'm willing to entertain the possibility that the scholars were wrong." The main display changed to show the black ships surrounding Kepler Station. Up close, their design was even more unsettling. The hulls seemed to absorb light, and their weapons ports were arranged in patterns that hurt to look at directly. "Sensor analysis complete, Commander," reported a stocky Rigelian at the science station. "The ships are made from materials we can't identify. Energy signatures are completely unknown. And, Commander," he paused, his multiple eyes blinking in sequence, "they're big. Each one of those ships could carry at least 10,000 troops." Maya felt her stomach drop. 47 ships. Maybe 500,000 soldiers, all with technology that surpassed anything the galaxy currently possessed. "What about the 72-hour deadline?" she asked. Commander Reeves turned to look at her, and Maya realized she had spoken out loud. "I'm sorry, I shouldn't have—" "No, it's a good question," Reeves interrupted. "Why give us time to prepare? Why not just attack immediately?" Maya thought about it, her mind racing through the tactical histories she had studied. "Maybe they want to minimize casualties. If they're really the original inhabitants of these systems, they might consider us," she struggled for the right word, "trespassers rather than enemies. Or," said the Zephyrian tactical officer, "they're giving their other forces time to get into position." The thought hit the command center like a physical blow. If there were predecessor fleets moving toward other systems, other stations, other worlds— "Communications," Reeves barked. "Get me Admiral Chen at Defense Command. Emergency priority." Maya's heart jumped at the name. Admiral Chen was her father's cousin, the relative who had helped her apply for the Stellar Academy scholarship. She had never met him, but her parents talked about him with pride. The holographic communication array activated, showing the cramped bridge of a military vessel in faster-than-light transit. Admiral Chen appeared, his weathered face creased with worry. "Sarah, we've been monitoring the situation at Kepler Station. Are you secure?" "For now, Admiral. But we have a bigger problem." Reeves gestured toward Maya. "One of our students has identified patterns in recent pirate attacks that suggest this invasion has been in preparation for months." Admiral Chen's eyes focused on Maya, and she saw recognition flicker across his features. "Chen, you're related to the family in New Seoul?" "Yes, sir," Maya managed. "My parents are David and Lin Chen. Good people," the Admiral said softly. Then his expression hardened. "Show me what you found, child." Maya repeated her presentation, this time with more confidence. As she spoke, she could see Admiral Chen's expression growing darker. "Commander Reeves," he said when Maya finished, "this matches intelligence reports we've been receiving from across the Outer Rim. Ships appearing in systems that should be uninhabited. Communication relays going offline. Trade stations reporting equipment failures." "It's coordinated," Maya said, the pieces clicking together in her mind. "They're not just taking back the Kepler system. They're taking back everything." The command center fell silent except for the soft hum of electronics and the distant vibration of the station's rotation. "How long do we have?" Commander Reeves asked. Admiral Chen checked something off screen. "The nearest Defense Force fleet is 18 hours away. But if these predecessors have forces moving toward other systems simultaneously—" "They do," Maya said with sudden certainty. "That's why they gave us 72 hours. Not to be merciful, but because they need time for their other fleets to reach their targets. They want to retake everything at once." Commander Reeves turned to her tactical display. "Recommendations?" The Zephyrian officer spoke first. "We evacuate as many civilians as possible and prepare for siege warfare." "No," Maya said, surprising herself with her vehemence. Everyone turned to look at her. "Sorry, but that's exactly what they expect us to do. They've been studying our response patterns for months. They know how we think, how we fight." "Then what do you suggest, Miss Chen?" Admiral Chen asked from the communication display. Maya stared at the tactical readouts, her mind racing. She thought about every military history class she had ever taken, every strategy she had analyzed, every pattern she had learned to recognize. "We don't fight them," she said slowly. "Not the way they expect. They've spent months learning our current tactics, but they've been away for 10,000 years. They don't know everything about us." "Explain," Commander Reeves ordered. Maya took a deep breath. "They're treating this like a reconquest, not a first contact situation. They assume we're just another primitive civilization that needs to be relocated. But we're not primitive, and we're not alone. There are dozens of species working together now, sharing technology and strategies they never had access to when the predecessors left." She gestured to the display showing the diverse crew of the command center. "They've been studying our individual species' military patterns, but they haven't been studying us as a combined force." Admiral Chen was nodding slowly. "The girl has a point. Our integrated defense strategies only developed in the last 2 centuries. The predecessors would have no frame of reference for multi-species tactical coordination. So what's the plan?" Commander Reeves asked. Maya looked around the command center at the Zephyrian, Altarian, Rigelian, and human officers all working together. At the technology that represented the combined knowledge of dozens of worlds. "We show them something they've never seen before," she said. "We show them what their galaxy has become while they were gone." The next 18 hours passed in a blur of preparation and growing tension. Maya found herself at the center of planning sessions that would have been unimaginable just days before. The quiet scholarship student who sat in the back of classes was now helping coordinate the defense of an entire star system. Commander Reeves had assigned her a workspace in the command center, complete with access to military databases that most officers would never see. Maya dove into the data like her life depended on it, which it probably did. "Maya," Admiral Chen's voice came through the communication array. He had remained in contact throughout the night, coordinating with fleets across the galaxy. "What have you learned about their technology?" Maya pulled up her analysis on the main display. "It's advanced, but not in the ways we might expect. Their ships are incredibly durable, and their energy weapons are more powerful than anything we have. But their sensor arrays are limited." "How can you tell?" asked Lieutenant Corin, the Zephyrian tactical officer who had become Maya's primary liaison. "They're not detecting our quantum communication networks," Maya explained. They can jam our regular communications, but they don't seem to know about the quantum entanglement relays we installed 5 years ago. That suggests their technology peaked before quantum communications were developed. Commander Reeves leaned over Maya's shoulder to study the display. What else? Their ship movements follow predictable patterns, Maya continued. Beautiful patterns, actually, like some kind of three-dimensional artwork. But predictable. They're not adapting their formations based on our responses. Arrogance, Admiral Chen said from the communication display. They assume we can't threaten them, so they don't bother with defensive maneuvers. Maya nodded. That's what I think, too. They've been away for 10,000 years, but they're fighting like they're still the most advanced civilization in the galaxy. A new voice joined the conversation as Director Voss entered the command center. The Stellar Academy's administrator looked haggard, his usually pristine uniform wrinkled from a sleepless night. Commander Reeves, he said, I've been monitoring communications from other Academy campuses across the galaxy. Kepler Station isn't the only one under threat. The main display changed to show a galactic map dotted with red warning indicators. More than 30 systems were reporting the appearance of predecessor fleets. How many ships total? Commander Reeves asked. Conservative estimate? Over 2,000, Director Voss replied. They're positioned to strike at every major population center simultaneously. Maya stared at the map, her mind reeling. 2,000 ships meant 20 million soldiers, maybe more. Even if every Defense Force vessel in the galaxy responded immediately, they would be outnumbered 10 to 1. We can't win a conventional war, she said quietly. No, Admiral Chen agreed. But maybe we don't need to. Before anyone could ask what he meant, alarms began blaring again. The tactical display showed movement among the predecessor ships surrounding Kepler Station. They're launching something, Lieutenant Corrin reported, his feathered crest flat against his head with stress. Multiple small craft heading for the station. Maya watched the display as dozens of small vessels detached from the larger ships. They moved with the same artistic precision as their parent vessels, forming elegant formations as they approached the station. Boarding parties? Commander Reeves asked. No, Maya said, studying the movement patterns. Look at their approach vectors. They're not trying to dock with the station. They're performing? As if to confirm her observation, the small craft began executing an elaborate aerial display around Kepler Station. They moved in perfect synchronization, creating complex three-dimensional patterns that were undeniably beautiful. What are they doing? Director Voss asked. Maya had an idea, but it seemed too strange to voice. Then she remembered something from her xenosociology classes. Professor Kelthar mentioned that some ancient cultures used ritual displays to communicate intent before warfare. You think this is a warning? Commander Reeves asked. Or an invitation to surrender, Maya replied. They might be giving us one last chance to comply peacefully. The beautiful, terrifying dance continued for another 10 minutes before the small craft returned to their motherships. Then silence. Incoming transmission, the communications officer announced. The same ancient cold voice filled the command center. People of Kepler Station, you have had time to observe our capabilities. You have 54 hours remaining to begin evacuation procedures. This is your final warning. The transmission ended, leaving them in tense quiet. They're giving us another chance, Director Voss said hopefully. No, Maya said, her mind working through the implications. They're eliminating variables. They want to be absolutely sure we understand we can't resist before they demonstrate what happens to those who try. Admiral Chen's image on the communication display nodded grimly. Miss Chen is correct. Intelligence reports indicate similar demonstrations at other targeted systems. Those that attempted to resist were pacified, with overwhelming force. How long until the nearest Defense Force fleet arrives? Commander Reeves asked. 14 hours, Admiral Chen replied. But Sarah, even our best ships won't be enough. The technological gap is too wide. Maya stared at the tactical display, her mind racing through everything she had learned about the predecessors, about their patterns, about their assumptions. An idea was forming, crazy and desperate, but maybe their only chance. Commander, she said slowly, what if we don't try to fight them at all? Explain, Reeves ordered. They expect us to either surrender or resist. But what if we did something completely different? Something they wouldn't be prepared for? Lieutenant Corrin's feathers rustled with interest. What do you have in mind? Maya took a deep breath. What if we invited them to talk? The command center fell silent except for the hum of electronics. Everyone was staring at her like she had suggested they all jump out an airlock. Maya, Admiral Chen said carefully, they've made their position quite clear. They want us to evacuate their ancient territories. But they haven't actually explained why, Maya pointed out. They haven't told us where they've been for 10,000 years, or why they left, or why they're back now. They're treating this like a simple property dispute, but it might be more complicated than that. Commander Reeves was studying the tactical display with new interest. You think there's something they're not telling us? I think they're acting like beings who have spent 10,000 years believing they were the rightful rulers of the galaxy, Maya said. But the galaxy has changed. We've changed. Maybe if they understood what their territories have become, what we've built together. It's worth a try, Director Voss said. If nothing else, it might buy us time. Time for what? Lieutenant Corrin asked. Maya smiled, the first real smile she had felt since the crisis began. Time to show them something they've never seen before. Time to show them that their galaxy isn't empty anymore. Admiral Chen was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of command decisions that could save or doom billions of lives. Do it, he said. Miss Chen, draft a message to the predecessor fleet. Let's see if 10,000 years has taught them anything about listening. Maya stared at the blank communication template on her screen, the cursor blinking like a heartbeat. How do you write a message that might prevent a galactic war? How do you talk to beings who had mastered space travel before your species learned to make fire? Take your time, Commander Reeves said, but Maya could hear the tension in her voice. Time was exactly what they didn't have. What do we know about predecessor culture? Maya asked, looking around the command center. Anything that might help me understand how to approach them? Director Voss pulled up files from the Academy's archaeological databases. Very little, I'm afraid. Most of what we have is speculation based on ruins and artifacts, but there are some patterns. The main display showed images of ancient structures found on dozens of worlds, massive towers that spiraled toward the sky, underground complexes with geometric precision, star maps carved into stone that showed constellations from 10,000 years ago. They seem to have valued harmony. Director Voss continued. Balance. Their architecture suggests a society that saw beauty in mathematical precision. Maya studied the images, thinking about the aerial display the predecessor ships had performed earlier. The perfect formations, the artistic movement patterns, they're not just warriors, she said slowly. They're artists. What difference does that make? Lieutenant Corrin asked. Maybe all the difference, Maya replied. She began typing, her fingers moving with growing confidence. To the predecessor fleet, we have received your message and understand your claim to these territories. However, before any evacuation can begin, we believe there are matters of great importance that require discussion. The galaxy you left 10,000 years ago no longer exists. In your absence, something unprecedented has occurred. We respectfully request the opportunity to demonstrate what your territories have become, and to discuss a future that honors both your ancient rights and the reality of what now exists. We await your response. Commander Sarah Reeves, Galactic Defense Force, Kepler Station. Maya read the message aloud, then looked up to find everyone staring at her. It's not what I would have written, Admiral Chen said from the communication display. What would you have written, sir? Maya asked. Probably a detailed military assessment and a request for terms, the Admiral admitted. But your approach might be better. It acknowledges their authority while suggesting there's something they need to know. Commander Reeves nodded slowly. Send it. The message transmitted into space, carried by quantum entanglement relays that the predecessors didn't know existed. Now they could only wait. The response came faster than expected. The same cold, ancient voice filled the command center, but this time there was something different in its tone. Curiosity, perhaps, Kepler Station. Your message is unusual. We are familiar with the standard responses to superior force, submission or defiance. You offer neither. Explain what you mean by unprecedented occurrence. Maya felt her heart racing. They were talking. Actually talking. Commander, she said quickly, I need to show them something visual. Can we establish a video link? They'd have to lower their communication shields, Lieutenant Corrin pointed out. That's asking a lot of trust. It's asking exactly the right amount of trust, Maya replied. They need to see that we're not afraid to be vulnerable. Commander Reeves looked at Admiral Chen's image on the display. He nodded slowly. Do it. The reply transmission included a request for visual communication and detailed specifications for establishing a secure video link. Again, they waited. This time the silence stretched longer. Maya could almost feel the predecessors debating among themselves, weighing the risks of opening communication channels with beings they considered primitives. Finally, the communication array activated with a new signal pattern. The holographic display in the center of the command center shimmered and resolved into an image that made everyone step back. The predecessor was tall, easily 7 feet, with skin that seemed to be made of living starlight. Patterns of light moved beneath the surface, creating constantly shifting constellations across their features. Their eyes were deep black, like looking into space itself, and when they spoke, their voice carried harmonics that seemed to resonate in Maya's bones. I am Harmony of Distant Stars, Speaker for the First Fleet, the being said. You have our attention, small ones. Show us this unprecedented occurrence. Maya stepped forward, trying not to show how intimidated she felt. Thank you for speaking with us, Harmony of Distant Stars. My name is Maya Chen. I'm a student here at Kepler Station. The predecessor's expression changed slightly. A student speaks for your military forces. Maya discovered the pattern of your preparations, Commander Reeves interjected. She has insights that our military minds missed. Harmony of Distant Stars tilted their head, light patterns shifting across their features. Interesting. Continue, student Maya Chen. Maya gestured to the display showing Kepler Station's population demographics. When you left this galaxy 10,000 years ago, each species lived separately. Humans were still confined to one world. Zephyrians hadn't developed spaceflight. The Altarians were just beginning to explore their own solar system. We are aware of the primitive state of younger species, Harmony of Distant Stars said dismissively. But look at what exists now, Maya continued, changing the display to show the current galactic map. Humans work alongside Zephyrians on joint research projects. Altarian meditation techniques help Rigelian engineers solve complex problems. Our technologies are shared, our cultures intermingled. The predecessor was quiet for a moment, studying the data. Species cooperation is not unknown. We observed such arrangements before our departure. Not like this, Maya said, her confidence growing. Not integrated societies. Not children growing up learning to think in multiple species, languages, and traditions. Director Voss showed them the academy. Director Voss activated the station's internal cameras, displaying images of students from dozens of species studying together, eating together, solving problems together. The predecessor watched in silence as the cameras showed mixed species research teams, art projects that combined different cultural traditions, and philosophical discussions that drew on the wisdom of multiple worlds. This is not mere cooperation, Maya explained. This is synthesis. Something entirely new. Your territories aren't just inhabited by the species you remember. They're inhabited by a new kind of civilization that includes aspects of all of us. Harmony of Distant Stars was very still, their light patterns moving slowly across their features. You claim to have created something we have never seen. Yes, Maya said simply. And you believe this gives you the right to remain in territories that belong to us? This was the crucial moment. Maya took a deep breath. I believe it means the question of ownership is more complicated than either of us initially thought. These aren't just your ancient territories anymore. They're something new, something that includes your heritage but has grown beyond it. The predecessor was quiet for a long time. The light patterns beneath their skin seemed to be moving faster, like thoughts racing through their mind. You ask us to consider sharing what is ours, they said finally. I ask you to consider that ownership might not be the right concept anymore, Maya replied. Your people were the first children of the stars. But we've all become children of the stars now. The question isn't who owns the galaxy. The question is what we build together. Harmony of Distant Stars closed their deep black eyes. When they opened them again, something had changed in their expression. This conversation is not finished, student Maya Chen, but it has given us much to consider. We will postpone our previous deadline while we evaluate what you have shown us. The transmission ended, leaving the command center in stunned silence. Did we just negotiate a ceasefire with a galactic invasion force? Lieutenant Corrin asked. I think, Maya said, sinking into a chair as adrenaline drained from her system. We just started something much bigger than a ceasefire. 3 days passed in tense waiting. The predecessor fleet remained in position around Kepler Station, their black ships silent and motionless. But they had also sent similar postponement messages to their fleets throughout the galaxy, buying time for something unprecedented. The first formal diplomatic contact between the predecessors and the modern galactic community. Maya found herself at the center of a whirlwind of activity she could never have imagined. Diplomats, xenosociologists, historians, and military strategists arrived from across the galaxy, all wanting to consult with the scholarship student who had somehow opened communication with beings from legend. Maya, Commander Reeves said, entering the conference room where Maya was reviewing cultural analysis reports. "We've received another message from Harmony of Distant Stars. They want to meet with you directly." Maya looked up from the data tablets scattered across the table. "Meet like in person?" "They're requesting permission to send a diplomatic shuttle to the station. One representative, minimal escort. They specifically asked for you to be present." The thought made Maya's stomach flutter with nervousness. "Do we know why they want to meet face-to-face?" "Based on our analysis of their culture," said Dr. Eris Thanar, a Centaurian xenosociologist who had arrived that morning. "Physical presence carries significant meaning for them. If they're willing to come aboard our station, it suggests they're taking this negotiation very seriously." Admiral Chen's image appeared on the communication display. He looked tired but hopeful. "Maya, the decision is yours. But I want you to know that representatives from 15 species are standing by to participate in these discussions. You won't be alone." Maya thought about her parents back on Earth, working their 3 jobs and believing their daughter was just attending classes among the stars. She thought about all the students still in the emergency shelters, waiting to learn if their homes would still exist tomorrow. "I'll do it," she said. 2 hours later, Maya stood in Kepler Station's main docking bay, watching a ship unlike anything she had ever seen approach through the atmospheric barrier. The predecessor shuttle was beautiful in an alien way, its hull seeming to bend light around it like a living prism. It landed with perfect silence, and a section of its surface simply dissolved to create an opening. Harmony of Distant Stars emerged. Even more imposing in person than they had appeared on the communication display, they moved with fluid grace, the light patterns beneath their skin creating a constantly shifting aurora. Behind them came 2 other predecessors, their light patterns dimmed in what Maya guessed was a sign of deference. Student Maya Chen, Harmony of Distant Stars said, their voice creating harmonics that seemed to resonate through the docking bay itself. "You are smaller than expected." Maya couldn't help but smile. "Most people tell me that, yet you speak with the authority of one much larger." The predecessor tilted their head, studying her with those deep black eyes. "This is curious." Dr. Thanar stepped forward, her Centaurian features carefully arranged in what her species considered a diplomatic expression. "Harmony of Distant Stars, we welcome you to Kepler Station. I am Dr. Eris Thanar, representing the Galactic Diplomatic Corps." The predecessor's attention shifted to Dr. Thanar, but only briefly. "You are not the one who showed us synthesis," they said, looking back at Maya. "Student Maya Chen, we wish to understand. Your species is young, yes? Your personal lifespan is brief?" "Yes," Maya said, not sure where this was leading. "Yet you speak of building something that will last beyond individual lives, beyond individual species. How does one so young and brief understand permanence?" Maya considered the question carefully. It felt like a test, but she wasn't sure what answer they were looking for. "Maybe because I'm young," she said finally. "You've lived for thousands of years, seen civilizations rise and fall, but I've only known the galaxy as it is now. To me, this cooperation between species isn't temporary or unusual. It's just normal. It's how things are supposed to be." Harmony of Distant Stars was very still. The light patterns beneath their skin had slowed to an almost hypnotic rhythm. "How things are supposed to be," they repeated. "Not how things were. Not how we made them. How they are supposed to be." "Yes," Maya said. "Maybe what you built 10,000 years ago was meant to become this. Maybe you left so that the rest of us could grow into something you couldn't have imagined when you were alone." The predecessor's 2 companions exchanged what might have been glances, their light patterns flickering in rapid synchronization. "You suggest," Harmony of Distant Stars said slowly, "that our departure was not abandonment, but cultivation?" Maya felt like she was walking on thin ice, but pressed forward. "I don't know why you left, but I know what exists now. Dozens of species working together, sharing knowledge, creating art and science and philosophy that none of us could have achieved alone. Maybe that's not an accident. Show me, the predecessor said suddenly. Show you what? This synthesis you speak of. Not data, not recordings. Show me the reality. Maya looked at Dr. Thanar, who nodded encouragingly. Would you like a tour of the station? For the next 4 hours, Maya led Harmony of Distant Stars through Kepler Station. They visited the integrated research laboratories where human intuition combined with Zephyrian analytical precision to solve problems that had puzzled scientists for decades. They observed art classes where students from different species created collaborative works that drew on multiple cultural traditions. In the philosophy department, they listened to a debate between an Altarian professor and her students about the nature of consciousness, with each species contributing insights from their own cognitive experiences. In the engineering labs, they watched mixed species teams working on problems that required understanding multiple forms of physics and mathematics. But it was in the main cafeteria that something shifted. Maya and Harmony of Distant Stars entered during the dinner rush, when students from across the galaxy gathered to eat and socialize. The noise level was tremendous, with dozens of languages and communication methods creating a chaotic symphony. At first, the predecessor seemed overwhelmed by the sensory input. But then Maya saw them focus on individual conversations, their head tilting as they listened to the organic translation that happened when species with different communication methods interacted. There, Maya pointed to a nearby table. Zara, my roommate, is Altarian. She thinks in emotional harmonics. Marcus is human, he thinks in linear sequences. Kex is Zephyrian, they think in mathematical relationships. But watch them solve that physics problem together. Harmony of Distant Stars observed as the three students worked through a complex equation, each contributing their species' cognitive strengths to reach a solution none of them could have found alone. They are not trying to think like each other, the predecessor said quietly. They are thinking as themselves, but together. Yes, Maya said. That's synthesis. Not losing what makes each species unique, but combining those unique qualities to create something larger. The predecessor was quiet for a long time, watching the students work and laugh and argue in the casual way of young people everywhere. When we left, they said finally, we believed we were the pinnacle of what this galaxy could achieve. We saw other species beginning to develop, and we assumed they would either follow our path or fail. But we didn't do either, Maya said softly. No. You found a third path, one we never considered. Harmony of Distant Stars turned their deep black eyes toward Maya. Student Maya Chen, you have shown us something that challenges our fundamental understanding of civilization and growth. What happens now? Maya asked. The predecessor's light pattern shifted into what might have been a smile. Now we learn, and perhaps if you are willing to teach us, we contribute to this synthesis you have created. Maya felt tears prick her eyes. You're not going to make us leave? Leave? Harmony of Distant Stars seemed genuinely puzzled. Student Maya Chen, why would we force you to leave something we now wish to join? Around them, the normal chaos of the cafeteria continued. But Maya felt like the entire galaxy had just shifted on its axis. The girl who had spent her life being invisible had somehow prevented a war and started a conversation that would reshape the galaxy. There is much to discuss, Harmony of Distant Stars continued. Treaties to negotiate, territories to share, knowledge to exchange. But the foundation has been established. Maya smiled, thinking about her parents back on Earth, still believing their daughter was just a scholarship student attending classes among the stars. They had no idea how right they were. 6 months later, Maya stood at the podium in the Grand Assembly Hall of the newly established Galactic Synthesis Council. The hall itself was a marvel of cooperative architecture, designed by teams from 12 different species to accommodate the sensory and physical needs of every known form of intelligent life. The audience before her represented something that had never existed before in galactic history. Humans sat next to Zephyrians, Altarians meditated alongside Rigelians, and scattered throughout the assembly were the tall, luminous forms of predecessors, their light patterns creating a gentle aurora across the hall. Maya wore her old gray jumpsuit, cleaned and pressed but still clearly secondhand. Some things she had decided were worth keeping. 6 months ago, she began, her voice carrying clearly through the hall's advanced acoustics. I was nobody special, a scholarship student from Earth, sitting in the back of classes trying not to be noticed. Gentle laughter rippled through the assembly. In the front row, she could see her parents who had arrived from Earth that morning with expressions of perpetual amazement. Next to them sat Harmony of Distant Stars, whose light patterns had become familiar and comforting over the months of negotiation. I learned something important during those months, Maya continued. Being noticed isn't about being loud or demanding attention. It's about seeing patterns that others miss, asking questions that others don't think to ask, and having the courage to speak up when you have something important to say. The assembly was completely quiet now. Maya could see students from Kepler Station in the audience, including Marcus Webb, who had become an unexpected ally during the integration process. Sarah Kim was there too, now heading a joint xenobiology research initiative with predecessor scientists. The predecessors taught us that wisdom isn't about having all the answers, Maya said. It's about being willing to change your mind when you discover something new. They could have forced us to evacuate their ancient territories. Instead, they chose to learn from what we had built. She gestured to a section of the assembly where mixed species research teams sat together. In the past 6 months, we've made discoveries that would have taken each of our species centuries to achieve alone. Zephyrian mathematical precision combined with human intuition has solved energy problems that have plagued us for decades. Altarian emotional intelligence merged with predecessor long-term thinking has created new forms of art that can be experienced across species, barriers. The light patterns of the predecessors in the audience had synchronized, creating gentle waves of luminescence that Maya had learned indicated approval and emotional resonance. But the most important discovery, Maya continued, is that diversity isn't something to be overcome or minimized. It's our greatest strength. Each species, each individual, brings unique perspectives that make all of us smarter, more creative, more capable of solving the challenges we face. She paused, looking out at the assembled representatives of dozens of worlds. I was invisible for most of my life because I thought being different was something to hide. I thought the fact that I saw patterns others missed, that I asked uncomfortable questions, that I didn't fit into any obvious category, was a weakness. Maya's voice grew stronger. I was wrong. Being different is exactly what the galaxy needs. Not conformity, but synthesis. Not one way of thinking, but all ways of thinking, combined into something none of us could achieve alone. The assembly erupted in a sound that was part applause, part harmonic resonance, part musical trill, and part subsonic vibration. Every species present was expressing approval in their own way, creating a symphony of unity and diversity that seemed to embody everything Maya had been trying to say. When the sound faded, Harmony of Distant Stars rose gracefully to their feet. Their voice, when they spoke, carried the formal harmonics of official ceremony. Student Maya Chen of Earth, they said, the Galactic Synthesis Council formally recognizes your contribution to the prevention of catastrophic conflict and the establishment of unprecedented cooperation between ancient and modern civilizations. Predecessors' light patterns shifted to a formal configuration Maya had learned indicated the highest possible honor. However, the title student no longer accurately describes your role in our community. By unanimous vote of all member species, you are hereby designated as first speaker for galactic synthesis, with the authority to represent our combined interests in all matters of interspecies cooperation and conflict resolution. Maya felt her knees go weak. She looked out at the assembly, at faces and forms representing dozens of worlds all looking at her with expressions of trust and respect. I accept the honor, she managed to say, but I hope you understand that I'm still learning. We all are. Indeed, Harmony of Distant Stars agreed. Learning together. As it should be. After the ceremony, Maya found herself on one of Kepler Station's observation decks, looking out at space that was no longer empty. Predecessor ships moved in elegant formations alongside vessels from every member species of the new council. Trade routes that had been disrupted during the crisis were now protected by joint patrols. Research stations marked the locations where multi-species teams were working on projects that would benefit everyone. Her parents joined her at the viewport, still looking slightly overwhelmed by everything they had witnessed. Maya, her mother said softly, when you were little, you used to sit in your room and solve puzzles that adults couldn't figure out. Your father and I worried that you were too different, that you'd have trouble fitting in. Maya smiled, thinking about the girl who had sat in the back of classes trying to be invisible. I never really fit in, Mom. I just learned that maybe fitting in isn't the point. Her father put his arm around her shoulders. We're proud of you, sweetheart. Not because you prevented a war, or became some kind of galactic diplomat. We're proud because you stayed true to who you are. Harmony of distant stars approached them, moving with the fluid grace Maya had come to associate with predecessor philosophy. Student Maya Chen, they said, then caught themselves with what might have been amusement. First speaker Maya Chen, there is something we have not yet shared with your people. What's that? Maya asked. The predecessor's light patterns shifted to a configuration Maya didn't recognize. When we departed this galaxy 10,000 years ago, we left behind guardians, automated systems designed to monitor the development of younger species and alert us if something unprecedented occurred. Maya felt a chill of understanding. The pirate attacks, the economic disruption, those weren't preparation for invasion. They were tests, Harmony of Distant Stars confirmed. Our systems detected unusual patterns in galactic development and began probing to understand what had changed. The attacks were designed to reveal how your species would respond to coordinated threats. You were testing our ability to work together, Maya said. Yes. And when our systems detected truly unprecedented cooperation, they sent the recall signal that brought us home. The predecessor's deep black eyes seemed to twinkle with something like humor. In a sense, student Maya Chen, your scholarship application essay about the parallels between ancient tribal conflicts and modern galactic politics was the first piece of analysis that caught our attention. Maya stared at them. My scholarship essay? It was published in the Academy's Xenosociology journal. Our monitoring systems flagged it as demonstrating insight beyond expected parameters for a human of your age. Harmony of Distant Stars paused. You have been noticed for far longer than you realized. As Maya processed this revelation, she looked out at the busy space around Kepler Station. Ships and beings from across the galaxy working together, learning from each other, building something none of them could have achieved alone. She thought about the quiet girl who had sat in the back of classes, convinced she was invisible. That girl would never have believed that her homework assignment would help reshape the galaxy, but maybe that was the point. Maybe the biggest changes came not from those who sought attention, but from those who simply tried to understand the patterns they saw around them. First speaker, her mother said, still stumbling over the title, What Happens Now? Maya smiled, looking out at the stars that no longer seemed distant and cold but warm with the light of countless civilizations working together. Now we keep learning, she said, all of us together, and we see what else we can build. In the distance, a predecessor ship and a human vessel moved into formation together, beginning a joint exploration mission to regions of space that none of them had ever visited alone. It was a sight that would have been impossible just 6 months ago, but now seemed as natural as breathing. Maya Chen, who had spent 17 years being unnoticed, finally understood that the most important discoveries often came from those who were willing to see what others overlooked. The galaxy was full of patterns waiting to be recognized, connections waiting to be made, and possibilities waiting to be explored. And sometimes, the person best equipped to see those possibilities was the one sitting quietly in the back of the class, taking notes and asking questions that no one else thought to ask. The girl who went unnoticed had finally found her place in the universe. And the universe was better for it.